Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're well. My name is Alex, and this is Slumber Time Podcast. This week, we'll be looking at positive stories, as I promised. I have been covering some deeper and darker pieces. Last week was especially heavy. Today, I want to focus on some good things just to balance it out a bit. I want to ask one question today, and that is, what is your happiest memory? I've racked my brain on this one, and it is honestly a really hard question. I guess I would say it's hard not because I don't have any happy memories. I just have difficulties of thinking that stick out as the happiest. The type of memories that I consider the best for me are usually the smaller ones. They're the memories that I lock away and come back to every once in a while. They're the ones that were good, but I just haven't thought of them recently. That way, I can really appreciate the moment for what it was. I can make a list of happy memories that really stick out to me, but I'm not sure I can necessarily choose one that sticks out as the happiest. I'm going to try, and to help me with that, I'm going to be doing a list of my top 10 happiest memories in my life. I'll warn you now, it may be slightly underwhelming. The rules for this are I will choose one category and find the happiest memory from there. Some will be stories, and some will just be general memories. So, without further ado, starting with number 10. This is the only one from when I was a kid. Back in 2002, I believe, I got my black belt in Taekwondo. I put a lot of work into it, and I was one of the youngest black belts in the country. I was definitely the youngest at my school. I did all the tests that were normally done then, and I earned it with my own hard work. I remember being a child and feeling very happy with myself. I often had the difficulty with finishing projects, and I felt like this was a real accomplishment. Who am I kidding? I still have difficulties finishing projects. Still, I remember the ceremony clearly. I remember a lot of the time I spent there. We even had some lock-ins where we would have dinner, watch movies, play games all night. For me, who doesn't really think back to his childhood much, to think about this and remember it in detail, I know it's a really happy memory. I don't have much more to add, but I will say that I was also a Boy Scout for probably twice as long, and I never felt nearly as accomplished as I did with Taekwondo. Honestly, my time as a scout doesn't even make my honorable mentions. Number 9. This one is similar to the last one in that it's an accomplishment for me. It's my acceptance to my college. I'm going to be cheating a couple times today and lump some similar things together which make up the overall memory for me. And for this, I had great scores on the ACT, and I got a huge scholarship from my college. I didn't really do much searching when preparing for college. If you're in high school, do spend extra time searching. But yeah, I basically knew which one I wanted to attend, and I knew I could get in. The main issue was money. I got my initial acceptance letter from the college with a letter saying that they'll put X amount of dollars towards my 4 years if I choose that school. I knew I wanted to, but I had to convince my parents that it was worthwhile. My school was not the cheapest whatsoever, but then I took the ACT again and improved my score by 3 points. For those who don't know what the ACT is, it's a score of maybe 1 until 36, and improving by 3 points is quite a bit. So with that score, my college sent me another letter because they caught word of that and they increased the scholarship amount. I was also asked to interview with the math department for a departmental scholarship, and it really showed me that my hard work in high school paid off. Literally. I saved quite a bit of money that way. So yeah, for any parents or students in the USA, look into ACT prep. Look into AP classes. Try to get signed up for any and all scholarships in your community as possible. See if you're able to take community college classes in your senior year of high school. all of those things will really help you a lot if you intend to go into college. Number 8, just last year, I went to Las Vegas. Now, I personally did not care for Vegas itself. It was very underwhelming to me. The food was amazing, but honestly, the national parks around there were magnificent. If you're ever in the area, go to Zion National Park. I can't recommend it enough. I loved so much of the area. Red Rock Canyon was also great, but Zion, though, was phenomenal. When my family and I went, it snowed that day, and it was a little hard to walk on the path safely, but the sight was something to behold. The reason this one is number 8 is because it's more that I was generally happy with how it turned out. It wasn't about pride this time in accomplishing something. This time as well, the bar was raised really high by being recommended by several people, and it was even better than I imagined. As someone who loves to hike, that whole area is perfect. All I can say is I'll remember the nature there for the rest of my life. Enough said. Moving on to number 7, International Club. Again, this is more of a group of memories than just one. I ended up joining the school's club halfway through my freshman year, yet I was lucky enough to be chosen to become the treasurer for my sophomore year. I knew many of the members already since I was friends with a lot of the Japanese exchange students. The year after, I then became president of the club and helped transition from one academic advisor to a new one. We went on many trips, and that's where I made most of my friends for university. It was a close-knit but big group. I had a lot of fun getting to know them, getting to know about their different cultures. I still keep in contact with some of them, and it was easily my favorite club. I do include another activity from college a bit higher up, but I wouldn't call it a club. Anyway, yeah, the friends I made, the trips we took, and the people I helped make their transition into American culture will all be memories I'll hold dear for a long time. So yeah, number 6. This one is about my time at work. I include 2 things about work. The first is getting the acceptance email was very big for me. I was in bed at home, had just woken up, and that's when I saw the email. I was really nervous, but once I opened it and saw they accepted me, I immediately woke up and was filled with so much energy. If you know me, that never happens until about 2 p.m. The other thing that I consider to be one of the happiest memories is when I was trusted with taking on more responsibilities at work. I had a rough start, as you may have heard from one of my other podcasts, and it took about a year for me to finally be 100% free from any issues. And then I was immediately asked to start doing some simple extra tasks. After a bit more than half a year, I asked to join the sales team, and they accepted me. My second month, I was number 2 in the company, and that's when I knew that I had succeeded at work. I will admit, I haven't been in the top ranking since then, but I also haven't been giving much of a chance in the past year anyway. There's some politics there, but I'm not going to bog this down with them. All I have to say, though, is I worked hard after nearly getting fired. Yes, I was nearly fired for my performance. And now I'm going to need to find something else to work towards because I've accomplished pretty much all there is to accomplish in that part of the job. One other point I find really happy is that 2 very amazing clients made me some handmade sweets, and one also cross-stitched me a handkerchief, and all of the artwork was done by hand. I can't believe how talented those clients are, how amazing they are, and I'm just so happy that they thought to give me such sweet gifts. Moving on to number 5, though. In university, this was not a club, but I was in theater. Most of my free time was spent with either the international students or rehearsing for a play. I had a wonderful time in the theater. Each person was a ton of fun to be around. As you can imagine, theater people love to have fun and have a lot of energy. I'm one with probably the least energy in the group, but I'm just happy to be included. Their energy is contagious, and it made me have a ton of fun as well. I never had the main part in any of the plays, but a couple times I did end up with some two-page monologues. I had a rough time getting those down, but my late professor, Stephen Marc-Weiss, he took time with me just to practice them, make sure I was stage ready. He drilled it into me and made sure each line counted for something. I love the feeling of being on the stage, the feeling of being somebody else for a little bit. Even the feeling of messing up on stage gave you a bit of a rush. It was exhilarating. And it's one reason I enjoy doing this podcast. I can sometimes perform, given the chance. I'd love to do some more plays. One that really sticks out for me is I'd love to try being Gogo from Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. I wish I had performed Beckett, but we had enough fun with Euripides, Moliere, Shakespeare, and so on. I'll say being chosen to be a voice actor for 2 small video games was also pretty fun, but yeah, you can't really share the energy with the audience or other characters, and nothing beats that, but it's an honorable mention. So now we have number 4, which beats that. This is a hard one to put above number 5, but the debate team was also a lot of fun, and I was also kind of successful in my senior year. I could even qualify for nationals in one area, but unfortunately I had to not go due to a conflict in travel plans. I love debating, and we went on tournaments at least once a month. The most fun I had during a debate was basically I got into a screaming match with another person. It was very unprofessional and why we actually lost that debate, but I was so happy going back and forth with someone else very skilled at such a high speed. The other debates were usually quite fun, but this is the one that I look back on and think that was the peak of what debate can be. The reason I put this above theater was because this one changed my life a bit more. Theater showed me a lot of culture, and I will always look at the plays I learned about in a good light. It really opened me up to new literature that I never would have known about otherwise. The plays from class really also affect an upcoming podcast. However, the confidence I got from debate and the skills I learned from doing that helped make me who I am today. I really internalized a lot of what I learned to start thinking about things as analytically as possible and try to think for myself. It's made up a lot more of my personality than theater. Also, getting awards for winning debates was also a big plus. There's even more because we would prepare a lot for the tournaments after school, and we would spend Friday and Saturday in another city or state at tournaments. Debating was such a big part of life for me. Also, fun fact, debate is why I was kicked out of the Boy Scouts. Basically, the story behind that one is I had to choose between them and debate. They gave me the ultimatum, and they wanted me to spend a weekend once a month camping instead of going to tournaments. When they made that ultimatum, I quit Boy Scouts without a second thought, and I only regret not leaving them earlier. I'll keep most of my opinions to myself, but the Boy Scouts were basically a waste of time for me. Anyway, number 3. I have yet to talk about my best friends from high school. I consider myself to have 2 best friends now, and some other very close friends with whom I can confide in. The original best friends I had were Anna, Alyssa, Abby, and Corinne. It's interesting that at the time my best friends were all girls, but they were all just friends. I loved hanging out with all of them, and we had a ton of fun. I look back at those pictures and think that those were some of the best times in my life. The memories that stick out the most are when we would come to my house for movie nights, and the best was when we would bake. We would often get brownie mix, cake mix, etc. And by we I mean I, would whip together the ingredients and get it all ready. Variation of those 4 would be around, and we would crack jokes, have fun conversations, talk about school. We all would hang out with each other separately too. Sometimes I'd hang out with Corinne and play with her cats and maybe watch a movie like Phantom of the Opera. She hated my singing, but we still had fun. I'd also hang out with Anna, and we would always play video games like Assassin's Creed or Arkham Asylum. Even with high school drama and work going on, we would hang out all the time, especially during our junior and senior years. We also ended up in many of the same classes. I met Anna in honors English literature in our sophomore year, and that's when I joined the group. We would often study at the library with our friends Zach, Evan, and Joel. They would often just mess around there, and we may not have focused so much on the work with them around, but they were some of the best friendships I had in high school. We all did eventually grow apart, of course. Anna moved in our senior year, and then we graduated. We may not talk much these days, but we all remember that we had a lot of fun, and the memories from then will always keep the friendship alive. I know that. Alright, number 2. Okay, a warning for this one. If you listen to my last podcast, you'll know a lot about this story. My friend says I over-romanticize it, and I agree with him. I've been able to work through a lot of it recently, but it doesn't make it any less happy to me. The second happiest time in my life was when I dated Hannah, as I called her in the last podcasts. Again, I won't give her name away here. I put this so high because I can't find any truly negative things that happened while I dated her. We never got out of the honeymoon phase, which is part of why I look back and see myself being really happy in this time. We had issues, of course, and we actually even broke up once before the big breakup. Still, it wasn't negative. I can't really put into words why, though, without another really long story. I've talked about this one enough in the last podcast, but it really was the happiest I've ever been in a relationship for the entire time the relationship lasted. And it's probably the second happiest memory in my life. This one formed me in ways I never expected, and I learned what love really meant at the time. I know, cliched, but yeah, before moving to the honorable mentions, I will add that idolizing this kind of memory is not good for your mental health. It has negatively affected many of my relationships. However, from a purely objective standpoint, I consider this version of me to be one of the happiest versions I ever was. Now, it does not make me as happy today, and I am trying to move on so I can find an even happier version of myself and keep my relationships with my friends, family, and loved ones as healthy as possible. Now, for the honorable mentions. Eric's party. I mentioned this in another podcast. This is basically the night when my grandfather died. I had a wonderful time. So, yeah, best party of university. Another one, I went to France in 2010. It was absolutely beautiful. The sights were amazing. Palace of Versailles and Giverny were gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. That's it. Korea, I had a great time eating awesome food and seeing a cool friend. It was also fun to speak with one guy in English, another in Japanese, while those two were speaking in Korean. It's just one of those really fun things that happen when you speak different languages. Hong Kong, it was just nice to visit my friend then. Next, playing with friends when I was 5. We were kids, I don't remember too much of it, but there was absolutely nothing unhappy about it. It just didn't change who I am as a person, but looking back, we had a lot of fun just digging in the backyard, going to Chuck E. Cheese, watching Pokemon. Yeah, it was just a good time. The last honorable mention would be my Nico trip with my friend PJ. I told that story in episode 1 of the podcast, and it really was wonderful. I nearly put it on here, but I didn't want to include more than one slot dedicated to the same general topic, which brings me to my number one happiest memory. Coming to Japan for the first time. It's another memory that I probably over-romanticize, but it does not affect me in a negative way, so it's fine. Right? The reason this one is number one is that the previous one, for example, made me really happy and affected my life a lot, but this one changed my life and directed my life in almost every way possible. The first time I came to Japan was in 2009 with a group of students from different schools and from a couple different states. None of us really knew each other, except I actually happened to know one of the teachers who came with us on the trip. I met one very special person in particular at that time as well, and she's the person I said in the last podcast I could confide in, and she's also the person who introduced me to the college I eventually went to. Without this trip, I would not have met her, not have gone to college, and probably not have studied Japanese and mathematics there, and not be able to be where I am today, which is Japan. We came to Japan for about 2 weeks, but everybody's lives were completely changed, I think. There were about 40 of us, and most of us became friends from that. We would stay in hotel rooms with different people each time, and we would have a lot of time to talk and have fun on the bus and at the different cultural sites. We went to about 10 different cities, saw many different heritage sites. Japan has a list of places they recommend tourists see, and we checked a large number of them off the list. The 2 weeks was packed, but every little thing we did and saw was amazing. It was certainly an expensive trip for us as well, though. We had to do some big yard sales to get the money for it. We stayed at some amazing hotels and saw some stunning sights. I'll just say, if I told someone in Tokyo which hotel we stayed at, they would know immediately what I'm talking about. I'd love to say each memory I had from that trip, like why my friend was nicknamed Rice Ball, and the food we ate at each restaurant. I'll say that though. I will say though, that the most emotional day was at the A-bomb dome, and seeing all the people hurt by the atomic bomb. It's chilling and fascinating. So yeah, that's my top 10 happiest memories in my life. Might be underwhelming, or might also just be something that you can enjoy as well. Let me know. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any recommendations for future poems or short stories, please let me know. Your input really helps. If you're on Twitch, give a follow. Let me know if you have any pieces you'd like to hear. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, drop a comment with any thoughts or recommendations. Just remember, we're here, and we're listening.